Hello, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube show, Ruben's History. Today, I'm going to talk about the first emperor of Rome, or Augustus, who was the Roman emperor from January 16th to January 27 BC, all the way to August 14 BC. So he was the emperor of Rome for almost half a century. For almost 40 years, he was the emperor of Rome, the first emperor of Rome. So he became the emperor of Rome when he defeated Mark Antony, who was one of the generals of Caesar and who was the consul for the year 44 BC. And Octavian or Augustus was made the consul for 43 BC, and together they hunted down and captured thought the assassins who killed Caesar in Rome on March 15th, 44 BC. And so that started the assassins started to call themselves as liberators, because they thought they liberated Rome from the tyrant Caesar, and the people were kind of upset at them because people really loved Caesar for what he did for his people, the Roman people. And so they fled the Roman Republic, and they went to Macedonia. That was where they were hiding. They went to Macedonia because that's where they were hiding at the time. And Mark Antony and Octavian thought the assassins, and the assassins committed suicide because they knew if they were gonna be prisoners of Rome, they would die there. So they decided to commit suicide by killing themselves, by stabbing themselves in the chest, actually in the stomach, and that's how they killed themselves. So after that, Octavian and Mark Antony and Lepidus, who were the three prominent men of Rome at the time, they established this alliance, which was known as the Second Triumvirate, where they tried to restore the Roman Republic and to bring the assassins to justice, which was successful during that time. And also, Mark Antony went to Egypt, where he met up with Cleopatra, because he went to Egypt because he wanted to have more troops to fight against the Parthian Empire, or which is Iran today, but then it was called Persia or Parthia, or the Parthian Empire. So he launched an invasion against Parthia in the 40s BC after the death of Caesar, so he could avenge Caesar's death and the death of Crassus, who was killed at the Battle of Carrhae on May 6, 53 BC, which was 4 years before Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, which took place on January 10th, 49 BC. So after that, they became Mark Antony and Octavian became enemies during that time, because Mark Antony was selling Julius Caesar's gold, or Octavian's uncle. So he was selling Octavian's grand uncle gold, which was Julius Caesar's gold, to the Roman people, and so they became enemies, and they began to hate each other. And then on September 2nd, 31 BC, Octavian defeated Mark Antony at the Battle of Actium, which is located in on the Sea of Actium, which is located in Greece. So after that, he retreated to Egypt, or which was Ptolemaic Egypt, or Hellenistic Egypt, which was found by Ptolemy, who was one of the generals and historians of Alexander the Great. And so Mark Antony went to Alexandria. That's where he and Cleopatra were hiding at the time from Octavian. So Mark Antony and Cleopatra committed suicide because they knew that Octavian was coming, and they might bring Cleopatra in chains throughout the city of Rome. And so they committed suicide, and it brought an end to the Hellazantic Egypt, or which was Ptolemaic Egypt, which was under the control of the Greeks. So after that, Egypt fell under the control of Rome, and it became a province of Rome, of the Roman Empire. So on June, on June, July, January 13th, no, January the 16th, January the 16th, 27 BC, Octavian was given the name Augustus, and that's also a and that's where how and that's how we have the month August for because that's one of our months, the eighth month of the year, which is August. So it was August, and that's how we have the month August because of Augustus' name. So he became Augustus on January the 26th, 27 BC, and he became the first emperor of Rome 1,000 years ago. I think it was 2,000 years ago, I believe. So during his rule as emperor, when he was the emperor of Rome, he celebrated his triumph over Egypt, Actium, and Alarica. Alarica is present day Croatia, which is a country located in the Balkans between Serbia and Bosnia and Slovenia, which were the former parts of the Yugoslavia, which was a former country in Europe during the 20th century. So he celebrated his triumphs over those nations, and he became people were celebrating his triumph following his return from those areas. And during his time, his nephew Marcus Claudius Marcella, who was a member of the Julian Claudian dynasty, which was a dynasty in the ancient Rome that was established under Augustus in 27 BC, when he became the first emperor of Rome during that time. And then there was a new dynasty that was established in the first dynasty in Rome that was established, which was known as the Julio-Claudinian family. It was called that because one of the descendants are from Julius Caesar. That's why it was called the ancestors from Julius Caesar was called one of the ancestors from Julius Caesar's family. That's why it was called the Julian Claudian dynasty, because some of the ancestors were from Julius Caesar. So that's why it was called the Julio-Claudinian dynasty. So in 42 BC, Julius Caesar was deified as a god in the Roman religion. He was made a god 2 years after his death. So in 23 BC, in the summer of 23 BC, his nephew, Augustus's nephew, Marcellus, died because he died for some reason, because he got sick, and then he died in the summer of 23 BC, which was before Christ. So, and also, before he became emperor of Rome, Augustus, he was married to he married the woman he wanted, who was Livia Drusus, which would become the future wife of Augustus. But before he got married to Augustus, Livia Drusus was married to Tiberius Claudius Nero, who was a Roman praetor, which was the highest office next to the consul during that time. And he was the praetor. Tiberius Claudius Nero was the praetor of the Roman Republic during that time, and he was forced to divorce her because Augustus wanted to marry her. But before Livia got married to Augustus, he had a son named Tiberius, who would become the future emperor of Rome, the second emperor of Rome after the death of Augustus on August 9th, B.C-14 B.C. A.D., which was after Anno Domini, or after death, or in the year of our Lord. So and then uh Tiberius was born on November 16th, 42 BC, in the city of Rome, which was under the Roman Republic during that time. And also during his rule, also during Augustus's rule as emperor of Rome, he was trying to find a successor, so who was going to succeed him to the throne. No, not to the throne, who was going to succeed him as the emperor of Rome, or the heir of Rome. So he decided that his two grandsons, Lucas Caesar and Gaius Caesar, his two grandsons would succeed him to the throne, would succeed him as the emperor of Rome, or the heir of Rome. So, but then they were too young. They were too young to be the emperor. They were too young to be the emperors of Rome. And there was only one emperor in power during that time, who was Augustus. So during his time as emperor of Rome, on March 6th, 12 BC, after the death of Lepidus, who was a member of the Roman Second Triumvirate during the time of Mark Antony. He died a year before Augustus was made the Pontifex Maximus, which was the high chief priest of the Roman religion. And a year later, during that same time, on February 5th, 12 BC, he was made the father of the fatherland of the Roman Empire. And I don't remember how you translate it to Latin. So during his rule, during his time as emperor, Augustus resigned he resigned as emperor. He retired as the emperor of Rome, because he got too old. And he felt like it was time to retire for him. And also there was a civil war. There was going to be a civil war in the Rome, and the economy was not going to do very well. And so that was around the time when Tiberius was sentenced to. He lived in the island of Rhodes, which is in Italy. He lived on the island of Rhodes during that time, because he lived there. He was exiled there, I believe. Tiberius was. So during that time, he returned, because he knew if he was not going to come back to be a emperor of Rome, he knew that the country would be in devastation, and that the country would be in a civil war. So during that time, he returned to the Rome. He returned as the emperor of Rome. He returned to the Roman politics during that time, and he reformed the Roman economy, and that prevented a civil war between the Romans. And I believe it was on August AD, August 20th to AD, Lucas Caesar was killed in France, when he was fighting against some tribes, I believe. And then 2 years later, on February 21st, 4 AD, which was the year when Jesus Christ was born, Gaius Caesar was killed in Armenia, and Augustus was at the age of 66 when his grandsons were killed, and he was devastated by the news of what happened to his grandsons. And so on June 26, 4 AD, when Jesus Christ was born, and I'm going to talk about that in my next video. So he named Tiberius as his successor to the throne, to be the next emperor of Rome. So Jesus Christ was born. Jesus Christ was born during the rule of Augustus in 4 A.D. 4 A.D. in the city of let's see, I forget the name of the city. He was born in Judea, which was under the Roman Empire. He was born in 4 BC, so that was before he was born during that time in the Roman Empire, but it was under the Roman Empire. He was born in Judea, which is present-day Israel, during that time under Rome. And on August 1914 AD, at the age of 75, Augustus died in the city of Nola, which is located in Rome, in Italy today, but then it was the Roman Empire. So he died while he was riding in his boat, because he was riding in his small boat over the river of the Nepola, I believe. There was some river he was riding in, and then the Roman people saw it was Augustus, and the Roman people bowed to him. They bowed down to him and said, "This is the man who gave us our freedom. This is the guy who established the Roman Empire." And they bowed down to him, and then he died after he got back home during that time. So after being the emperor for almost 40 years, he was the most influential person in the Roman Empire during that period. And following this, his adoptive son Tiberius became the second emperor of Rome, following the death of his adoptive father on August 9th, 14 AD, which was after Christ was born. So yeah, that's the story of Augustus, the man who defeated the tyrant Mark Antony, and who became the emperor of Rome following the death of Mark Antony. So I hope this video has been a little bit informative. Hope you learned something new. And I'm planning to talk about the rule of Tiberius, who became the leader of Rome following the death of his adoptive father, in my next video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.